Hi guys, it's Angie with Fun Endeavors Tie-Dye Lab. Today let's make an ice-dyed mandala shirt. The shirt was prepped like normal, so I soaked it in a soda ash solution for 20 to 30 minutes, then I wrung it out of my Panda spin dryer so it's just barely damp. I also have it turned inside out. I want to put the mandala both on the front and the back of the shirt. So to begin, I'm going to go ahead and center the shirt. I'm going to speed this part of the video up, but I have a link down below in the description for another video which shows how to center a shirt. Essentially what I'm doing is getting both sides of the front of the shirt next to each other and both sides of the back of the shirt next to each other. That way whenever I apply the dye, the front's going to look more similar or symmetrical, and so will the back. Okay, so now that the shirt is centered, it's time to go ahead and fold our mandala. To begin, I'm going to take the hem of the shirt and fold it up to the neck area of the shirt. Grabbing that hem area, I'm going to fold it down halfway, kind of like I would if I were making a paper airplane. Then I'm going to turn the shirt over and do the same thing with the neck portion of the shirt. I want to make sure to keep all of my layers intact and keep all of the wrinkles smoothed out of the shirt. I'm going to take that same fold and fold it down toward the center line of the shirt one more time. Then I'm going to turn the shirt over and do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to use some large clothespins on the folds just to hold them in place while I'm tying the design. Using some sinew, I'm going to tie a straight line down at the very end of the mandala. Then I'm going to kind of bunch up my fabric a little bit and tie a diagonal line on the shirt. There are a lot of layers of fabric, so sometimes it's a little bit difficult to get it started. Now I'm going to do a diagonal line going the opposite direction. Then from here, I'm going to tie diagonal lines, alternating the direction, going all the way out to the very end of the shirt. I think that it's a little bit tougher sometimes to get the ties down at the very end of the mandala started, just because it is such a small area. Once you get them going though, it goes a lot faster and it's a lot easier to tie the lines, I believe. I don't cut my sinew in between each wrap or each tie. I go ahead and leave it all connected as one large piece from beginning to end. Since this is such a thick fold, I'm going to set it aside and allow it to dry out completely before I go ahead and apply the dye. I get asked the question a lot why I prefer to dye a lot of my shirts dry. Well, there's a couple reasons for that. First off, in thick folds like this shirt or a shirt like a geode, it's a little bit difficult to get good color saturation in the middle of the shirt if it's already too saturated with soda ash solution. The soda ash solution has already filled the fibers of the shirt, so they don't really want to soak up the dye. However, if the shirt is already dry, they're going to readily wick up that dye, just kind of like a dry sponge. So if you have a sponge that's already filled with liquid, it's really tough to get it to soak up more liquid. But if your sponge is dry, it's going to soak up the liquid rather quickly. It's the same way with a shirt and the inside of a thick fold like this. With a thinner fold, like say a spiral, if the shirt is already saturated with soda ash solution and it doesn't really want to soak up the dye, you can peek inside of those folds and see that the dye is not going into the center, and just continue to add dye until you force the dye into the fibers and some of the soda ash solution out. You can't really do that with a thicker fold like this, so it's just easier to wait until the shirt is totally dry to make sure you can get the center of these thick folds well saturated. The other reason why I dye a lot of my shirts dry is just simply because I tie a bunch of shirts at the same time, and then I go ahead and dye a bunch of shirts at the same time. So by the time I've tied them all and I begin dyeing them, most of the time they've already dried out. It's not necessary for every fold though for it to be dyed dry. I'm going to ice dye this shirt. So to begin, I've placed it on top of a rack, and I'm using some silicone cake molds to make myself an ice barrier to keep the dye and the ice on this shirt. I have a link down below in the description for where I purchased these cake molds, along with where I purchased several of the other items that I use when I tie-dye. I also list the dye colors and some other useful links down below in the description. To hold the silicone cake molds up next to the shirt, I'm going to use some wooden clothespins and attach them to the metal rack. All of the dye colors that I'm using on this shirt are Dharma Trading Company colors. I'm beginning by applying navy blue right on all of the sinew lines. When you look at the shirt, the sinew lines kind of divide the shirt into two areas. On one side of the shirt, I'm going to apply Grecian Sea from Dharma Trading Company in all of the different areas. Then on the other side, I'm going to apply New Emerald Green to all the areas. Now I'm going to add a little bit of additional soda ash over the top of the shirt just to make sure that when the ice melts and runs through the shirt, I still have plenty left in the shirt to react with the dye. Now it's time to add a layer of ice on the shirt. After this first layer of ice melted, I went ahead and added a second layer of ice to the shirt and allowed it to continue to process. After the second layer of ice melted, I checked the back of the shirt and the dye had come through really well to the back side, so I just left it alone and allowed it to process for about 2 days. To rinse the shirt, I took it to my utility sink and I began rinsing it in cold water to rinse out the soda ash that's in the shirt. Then I untied the shirt and I gradually warmed the water up to hot to rinse out any of the excess dye that didn't bond with the shirt. After I rinsed for a while, I went ahead and added some hot water and a little splash of Blue Dawn dish detergent to my sink. I allowed the shirt to soak and continued changing out the water until the water was almost clear. Then I put the shirt into my washing machine along with some Dharma's textile detergent and I washed it using a hot water cycle. Then after the shirt was washed and dried, this is what it looks like. Okay, so what do you guys think? So I really like the shirt, but the top portion of the shirt is obviously not as saturated and as dark as the bottom portion of the shirt. Part of the reason for that is because the fold of this shirt was just really thick. I also only added dye to one side of the shirt. I think if I would have turned the shirt over and added another layer of dye and ice to the back side, it probably would have worked out a little bit better. I do like the design though, and I like the way the colors blend and work together. So I'm going to have to work on this one just a little bit more. But drop me a comment down below and let me know what you think. And if you've enjoyed the video, I sure would appreciate it if you would like it and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.